Chapter 1878 Invaders. Luo Zhuo raised his hand and held the golden light in his palm. He raised his head and looked at the distant snow-capped mountains. The wind and snow suddenly became more rapid, and his eyes became flickering. Suddenly, two golden wings sprouted from behind him, and their light illuminated the courtyard of the Jokhang Temple. Call! With his wings spread, he took off into the air and flew towards Mount Everest like a hurricane. At this time, on top of Mount Everest, frost that has not melted for 10,000 years has condensed here, enduring the baptism of endless strong winds. This is the highest peak in the world. Standing here, you can overlook the entire planet. Two humanoids stand on Mount Everest. They look like lizards with thick tails and are more than 3 meters tall and sturdy. It seems that they are the same race as the people of Nash Kingdom and the lizard men of Wulwan Empire. There are just some slight differences in shape. One was snow-white, and the other was as red as burning charcoal. It was a layer of armor covering their bodies, like skin. The red one is in front, and the white one is behind. There were a dozen small tentacle-like protrusions on the red lizardman's head, and black grooves like tear marks next to his eyes. He folded his arms, looked up at the peak in front of him, and sighed with a smile. Is this the highest point in the world today? According to the Creator's usual methods, I'm afraid that a new flood will break out soon. The white lizard man glanced coldly at the frozen world below. When all the ice and snow melt, floods will cover 80% of the land. By then, only this land will remain. It will become the cradle of a new generation of life. The red lizard man turned around and said majestically, "It's decided. We are going to occupy this place. What do you think, Kuru?" The white lizard man named Kuru nodded and said, "Lord Kaz, your idea is very wise. We will be the new generation of angels and gain the favor of the Creator. At that time, we can at least have a whole era of peace." However, there are still many races hiding in the dark on this planet, waiting to compete for the power of angels. Kaz sneered and said, "For countless years, the creatures that can survive on this planet have emerged from brutal battles. If anyone dares to obstruct our path, we will destroy them." Kuru said, "The first people we should eliminate are the humans of this generation. They have been abandoned by the Creator. They have lost the favor of God, and even if we kill them all, they will not be punished by the Creator." Kaz turned around, narrowed his eyes, and scanned the entire snowy plateau with a cold gaze. "You're right. We need to make room for the new generation to grow." His head turned sharply to the side. "Aren't the natives coming now?" A sharp cry came from afar, and in the white sky, like a golden sun, it quickly rose up, and the shadow of a golden giant eagle emerged. Luo Zhuo arrived in an instant and came to the snow mountain. He landed at the foot of Mount Everest, and when he saw the two people suddenly appear, there was not much surprise in his eyes, just a fleeting wonder. After all, he had experienced the Battle of Nash Kingdom and went to Tianhai City to fight against the Wulwan Empire. So he was already very familiar with the lizard people underground. He just didn't know where these two came from. Are there still people alive in Nash country, or are there new creatures emerging from other forces? He is now the chief undertaker of the new Tantric Buddhism and carries the faith of all believers. When these two people appeared in front of him, they did not conceal their existence at all. Therefore, soon after they appeared, they were discovered by Luo Zhuo. He clasped his hands together and bowed to Kaz and Kuru. "Where are you from, you two? What brings you to the snowy plateau?" Kaz and Kuru heard voices translated by the device, allowing them to understand the words of the human in front of them. However, after the two looked at each other, there was a playful smile in their eyes. "It seems like he's one of the stronger guys in this generation. But this is the best level." Kuru stepped forward and said to Kaz, "Sir, let me take care of this guy. Just treat it as a hunt." It's quite interesting, isn't it? Kaz had originally planned to do it himself. After all, encountering another intelligent creature was quite interesting. But since his men had requested it, he shrugged and said, "Whatever you want. Remember not to kill him too quickly, just have some fun." Kuru nodded. I will follow your orders, Lord Kaz. He stepped forward, not bothering to translate the language, and just said with a smile in the language of his own race, Come on, you 6 generations behind. Let me see what level of evolution your generation has reached. He waved to Luo Zhua. I think the meaning of this action is the same among all intelligent creatures. Provocative. Luo Zhua looked at the 2 underground creatures in front of him and knew in his heart that they had ill intentions. His eyes became sharper. Unlike his brother Juegua, who was born as a shepherd's son and has always been engaged in the cause of the resistance, he does not have such a strong Buddhist temperament of forgiveness. Sure enough, he comes with bad intentions. A golden light suddenly burst out from Luo Zhua's body, and the wings behind him became even bigger, like a powerful weapon made up of pieces of golden feathers. In Kuru's sight, he turned into a dazzling golden light and attacked like the sun. On top of the great snow mountain, Buddha's light emerged and illuminated all directions. That tremendous force swept in all directions in an instant. Kuru looked at the human in front of him with an arrogant smile on his face. It was the expression of a cat playing with a low-level creature, like a cat catching a mouse. His smile was very bright, and it remained on his face until Luo Zhua came in front of him. Plop. Until his body fell on the cold snow, that smile was still on his face. Kaz, who was originally watching the show from the side, suddenly changed his expression. He didn't expect such a result. With just one move, his most capable subordinate was killed by the human in front of him. Kuru paid the price for his arrogance. He was very powerful and shouldn't have been killed like this. But he underestimated Luo Zhua too much. However, as soon as Luo Zhua made a move, he burst out with all his strength. Kuru's body fell to the ground, with a big hole in his chest. His internal organs flowed out and froze into dark green ice. His blood is green like a bug's. Luo Zhua's body stopped in the distant sky, golden light enveloped him, and golden wings spread out behind him, like a giant eagle. He himself did not expect that the effect of this attack would be so good. Sure enough, it's different. He looked at his hands and muttered to himself. Only he could see that from the entire snowy plateau, endless golden light was converging on him. Boom! Luo Zhua had no time to marvel at the power at this moment, because on Mount Everest, a wave of red flames erupted into the sky. The death of his subordinates made Kaz extremely angry. This was not only because of the death of his subordinates, but also because he felt that his dignity was offended. His red body began to burn like charcoal, and wisps of red flames like blood rose up and gathered into a huge fireball above him. The scorching temperature instantly turned the ice and snow on the top of Mount Everest that had not melted for 10,000 years into snow water, which then evaporated into white mist. The scorching heat was so intense that even Luo Zhua could feel his heart pounding. Obviously, this red guy is much stronger than the white guy. You damned native! How dare you kill my men? I will kill you in the most cruel way. And then I will kill all your people on this land. Kaz roared like this, raised the huge red sun with a diameter of 100 meters high in both hands, and threw it fiercely in the direction of Luo Zhua. The red sun descended extremely quickly, and all the ice and snow melted wherever it passed. Luo Zhua had no habit of wearing combat uniforms, and although his supernatural powers protected his body, they still could not completely block out such high temperatures. He felt his skin getting hot. But he did not retreat, because if he retreated, the red sun would fall into the snowy area, bringing about a huge disaster. The golden wings behind Luo Zhua spread out one by one. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The golden feathers were like 180,000 sharp blades, instantly breaking away from the wings and shooting forward. A sky full of golden feathers shot towards the big red sun, slowing down its movement, but most of them were quickly melted away. Kaz stood on Mount Everest, controlling the red sun from afar. Feel the burning flames from the center of the earth. The speed of the red sun slowed down due to the obstruction of the golden wings, but it still moved forward firmly. There is nothing fancy about this move. It is simply a crushing move with absolute power. Although Luo Zhuo was blessed with the power of faith, he was still beaten back due to the absolute gap in strength between the two. He felt like his body was about to burn, and his skin turned red. If a thermometer could be inserted into his veins, his blood would probably boil. At this moment, in the distant sky, another golden light approached like lightning. Luo Zhuo gritted his teeth, but his eyes lit up. Why did you come so late? The man who came was wearing a simple red monk's robe, but his appearance was exactly the same as Luo Zhuo. It was his elder brother Juegua. Juegua smiled slightly, did not answer, but rushed towards Luo Zhuo. The two golden lights merged into one, and the twin brothers became one. At this moment, he is no longer Juegua or Luo Zhuo, but the patron saint of Tantric Buddhism passed down for countless years, the burial master. The moment the two merged together, a terrifying power burst out from his body. The Undertaker stretched out his strong palm and pushed it forward. Vast golden energy burst out like an ocean and collided fiercely with the red sun. The red sun began to tremble in the sky, and its forward movement was abruptly curbed. Kaz couldn't believe what he saw. It's obviously just a low-level existence. Why does it have such power? Could it be? His eyes wandered for a moment, as if he had thought of something. But now that things have come to this, there is absolutely no way he can leave. Escape? That would make him lose all face. As a member of the royal family of the Shuryan clan, he would never accept defeat and escape. What's more, he wanted to lead his people to fight in this chaotic end times. The snowy plateau is his ideal territory. You should be the strongest here, right? As long as we kill you too, this place will belong to us. He was not unfamiliar with the existence of guardians, as there were such beings in their clan. However, he believed that as a member of a superior race, he could defeat it. Boom! In the sky, the huge red sun suddenly collapsed, and the broken pieces of fire fell all over the earth like meteors. Hundreds of huge lakes were created directly on the snowy plateau, with white water vapor surging and the lake water boiling. A shrill cry came out of Kaz's mouth, and his body swelled up in an instant. The body, which was originally more than 3 meters tall, unexpectedly grew more than 1 meter taller. The body was expanding as if it was inflated, and the limbs became thicker. His skin was as red as volcanic rocks, and hot air waves escaped from the cracks in his skin. Mount Everest is melting, revealing the rocks that have been covered for many years, and even many fossils of marine life have been peeled off. On the snowy plateau, many nearby herdsmen witnessed this magical scene. Mount Everest, which has been covered in ice and snow, and is as white as jade, now reveals its top as if it has taken off its clothes. They quickly knelt down and prayed devoutly. Boom! Kaz rushed towards the Undertaker like a cannonball, his body burning with endless flames, like a red sun, melting and burning everything in his path. The Undertaker looked at him calmly, as if he had no joy or sadness, but in the deepest part of his eyes, there was a hint of destructive, murderous intent. The Buddha also has the wrathful Vajra form, and he can be compassionate toward his enemies. But the enemy in front of him is not a human, but a creature that wants to destroy all humans. There is no need to hold back. The Undertaker did not flinch and charged forward directly. The golden light enveloped his entire body. His body was only about half the size of Kaz's. His half-sized fist collided with the huge red fist. The golden and red energies annihilated each other, and the fierce shock waves swept in all directions. Boom! The ice and snow on Mount Everest began to collapse on a large scale, causing a huge avalanche. When the monks on the snowy plateau heard the noise, they hurried out of the temple. When they looked up, they saw that the top of Mount Everest had been blown to pieces. Buddha bless you. They were so frightened that they could only bow their heads and pray devoutly. Hopefully Buddha can protect them from suffering. In the deepest part of their hearts, the object of their prayers has a precise image, that is, the patron saint of Tantric Buddhism on the snowy plateau, the Lord of Burial. The power of everyone's thoughts is extremely weak, so weak that it is almost imperceptible. But firm belief, like small streams that converge into a river, will become an unshakable force. The strength of the brothers Luozhua and Juegua is not that strong. Juegua is a black chariot with 22,000 points, and Luozhua is even at the level of only 18,000 points now. Even after the fusion, the combat power that can be unleashed is still far from the bishop level. However, they have a religion with a long history and the power of faith of millions of devout believers. This one punch brought together the faith of millions of people. Crack. There was a crisp crackling sound from Kaz's hand bones, and the blood that flowed out evaporated the instant it came. His body flew backwards like a cannonball and finally stopped after hitting Mount Everest hard. The Undertaker's health was not much better. His entire right arm was twisted, the bones were broken, and his arm was swollen. But after a while, the injuries on the body were healed. He was as intact as the majestic Buddha, and there was no sign of any problem with him. Juegua and Luozhua could not help but sigh in their hearts. Fortunately, they had listened to Zhang Yi's advice, rebuilt the temple, resculpted the golden body of the Buddha, and gathered the power of tantric faith again. Otherwise, facing an opponent of this level today, they would probably have no way out. The two had no time to rest, because the next moment, they heard a deafening sound. Mount Everest, the world's tallest mountain, was cut in half. Boom! The huge mountain was held up by Kaz. This scene was extremely shocking, just like an ant trying to shake a tree or an ant moving a mountain. But the other party really did it. Kaz lifted up the huge mountain, set it on fire with blazing flames, and then slammed it towards the Undertaker. This may be the largest weapon in the world. Seeing this, the Undertaker hesitated for a moment, but was unable to avoid it. Because according to this situation, if he dodged it, the huge rock would fall into the city of Sarah. By then, the hilltop will explode like a cannonball, killing countless people. The host silently chanted the Buddha's name, Amitabha. His eyes were determined, and he finally decided to take action to block it. His right hand dug a piece of flesh from the palm of his left hand, and his blood flowed out in a golden color. He pressed his left hand on his head, and blood quickly flowed down his head, dyeing his entire body with a layer of gold. A moment later, he turned into a Buddha statue shining with dazzling golden light. The image of Vajra, the indestructible golden body. When the Undertaker opened his eyes, he looked like a furious King Kong. He rushed forward and hugged the huge mountain with his hands. His body was sent flying backwards by the huge impact force, and Kaz jumped up, taking the opportunity to take his life. As a result, the Undertaker shouted a Buddhist name and suddenly exerted force on his body, causing the mountain to collapse directly, turning it into rubble all over the sky and splashing on the snowy mountain. He soared into the sky and engaged in close combat with Kaz. Juegua's close combat skills are not very good, but Luozhua, who came from the rebel army, is an expert. The two brothers join together, complement each other, and make up for each other, making their fighting power extremely powerful. Seeing this, Kaz, who claimed to be a superior race, would certainly not tolerate it. The two began to fight in the most primitive way on the snowy mountain. Fists, elbows, knees, anything that can be used, neither of them will waste. As the fight progressed, they became so entangled in the struggle that they wrestled with each other like two hooligans and both rolled down the snowy mountain. Boom, boom, boom. The Great Snow Mountain is in trouble today. Even when Zhang Yi fought against Emperor Shirtian here last time, he didn't destroy it so badly. Today, the Undertaker and Kaz stood directly on the mountain, attacking with the most powerful force and the most primitive means. All this power dissipated into the snowy mountains. All the fallen snow on the top of the mountain was cleared away, and a large number of potholes were dug out. If this sacred mountain on the snowy plateau was not big enough, it would have been razed to the ground long ago. Kaz's strength is indeed powerful. His body is as hard as rock, and his power is as terrifying as a dragon or an elephant. However, in the battle with the master of the Undertaker, he had a slight advantage in the beginning, but soon ended up in a tie, and in the end, he even fell into a disadvantage. He gradually discovered that something was wrong, because in this land, No matter what kind of injuries the Undertaker suffered, they would be healed quickly. At first, Kez didn't believe it. He made a desperate attack, and his right hand turned into a hand knife, which directly pierced through the heart of the Undertaker and crushed his heart. This is a fatal injury for humans. But even so, the Undertaker did not die. Such a miraculous scene finally made Kez realize the terrifying power of tantric faith. But it's too late. The Undertaker, who was like a perpetual motion machine, finally gained the upper hand after fighting for a day and a night. He grinded Kez to death and cut off his arrogant head. Juegwa and Luo Zhuo separated at this time, and there was obvious fatigue in their eyes. Not only them, the tantric followers did not dare to rest until the battle was over. Their faces also showed a deep sense of fatigue. I didn't do anything, but I felt as if I had been working hard all day and felt that my energy and spirit had been greatly depleted. He is very powerful, even more powerful than the Prince of Nash Kingdom back then. Luo Zhuo held Kez's head and absorbed his essence without any hesitation. And Juegwa also took back Kuru's body and absorbed his essence. It's a turbulent time. Juegwa looked into the distance. His tone was not relieved because of the victory, but rather a hint of sadness. The world is becoming increasingly chaotic. Because Tianzhu did not appear. Does this mean that the creator has begun to lift restrictions on underground creatures on a large scale? Although the two did not know what would happen in the future, they still told everyone about this matter through the communication channel of the top leaders of the 6 regions. All of a sudden, the whole country was once again in a state of panic. In the northwest region, Li Changgong was sitting in a warm office. When he saw the message from Luo Zhuo, he felt his head aching again. Damn it.